New forecast out from the UK government points to the painful toll the coronavirus pandemic has taken on the economy there. GDP expected to decline more than 10%. That is the worst decline in 300 years. Tom Belger is joining us from London today. And Tom, I mean, that's a pretty eye-opening number, but I guess if there's any silver lining, that decline wasn't as bad as many economists expected.
Hi, Kiko. Yeah, next year, the Office for Budget Responsibility, the UK's budget watchdog, is predicting pretty strong growth, more than 5% and more than 6% the following year. But as you say, warning today, an 11.3% fall in UK GDP this year, biggest decline since something called the Great Frost, apparently one of Europe's coldest ever winters in 1709, according to forecasters. So remarkable statistics there. Also saying that government borrowing, which has surged to cover all the costs that have come up from this pandemic, now at its highest ever peacetime level. So we also had today, on top of this forecast, the Finance Minister, Rishi Sunak, spelling out the government's spending plans and priorities. Total spending due to keep on rising. Despite those figures, he handed out more cash today for health services, long-term unemployed, $130 billion for infrastructure. But I think what's proved most controversial is a cut to Britain's aid budget. That's already sparked one minister's resignation today, as well as a pay freeze being announced for many public sector workers. Kiko.
So, Tom, I mean, having said that, what does the employment picture, for example, look like? I mean, the UK has really, in many ways, gone for very strict lockdowns. What does the outlook look like on that end?
Yeah, the UK has certainly gone for strict lockdowns, although a lot of people here would say we should have gone further. But it's also brought in pretty unprecedented levels of subsidy for wages of workers who've been put out of work by these shutdowns. So millions of people, I think up to 30% of the workforce at one point, if I've got that right, were under these schemes. So it has significantly limited unemployment. And because that scheme has been repeatedly extended and now due to last at least until March next year, unemployment should be kept down to around 7.5%. But having said that, that's still a significant hike on levels at the moment.
Tom, Brian Chung here. Does any of this change the calculus for the Bank of England? We know that the Monetary Policy Committee will have one more meeting to wrap up 2020 in a few weeks. Any sort of hints as to the data that you just presented having an impact on what that decision might be?
I think the Bank of England's forecasts have been fairly in line, at least on those top line figures about GDP coming in at its worst in more than 300 years. But I think we'll have to wait and see what the Bank of England cook up. The Chancellor, for sure, it doesn't look like he, in response to this today, he didn't really give too much of an indication about whether he will tighten spending in the years to come, whether he'll raise taxes. So while there's been some slight increase in spending, it's not the kind of stimulus that might affect the bank's calculations. And we'll have to wait and see what the Bank of England make of those OBR forecasts.
Yahoo Finance's Tom Belger there, joining us from what looks to be a festive London. Nice to see your Christmas tree behind you.